One of the best parts about Left 4 Dead and its story is the wall graffiti found throughout the game. There is a lot of it, like literally hundreds. Sometimes these lines of text give us very obscure references, and other times they give us huge lore implications. I've broken down some of the wall graffiti over the course of my campaign breakdowns, but there's so much of it in this game, it's worth its own video. Today I'm going to go over some of the wall graffiti found throughout Left 4 Dead. There is a lot to cover, so without wasting any more time, let's get started. Let's start this video off with the Death Toll campaign, more specifically the beginning of Chapter 3, which has the first piece of wall graffiti I want to talk about. Claude Huggins, you are a coward and you let children die. Now, with this in mind, let's head over to Chapter 1 of the Sacrifice and read this piece of wall graffiti. Molly H. I can't find the kids. I hope you have them. I'm leaving with the others. Claude H. It's important to note that not only do the names match, both of these pieces of wall graffiti are making references to the safety of children. However, do keep in mind that the sacrifice takes place in Georgia while Death Toll takes place in Pennsylvania, so the odds of this person being the same Claude Huggins is very low, but not impossible, and the correlation between the two is definitely worth pointing out. Now, let's head over to the church scene at the end of Chapter 3. Here is something that I missed in my Death Toll video. Some of the names seen on the church wall are actually Valve employees. Some of these employees are Phil Robb, who is currently the co-founder and creative director at Turtle Rock Studios, Tristan Raidford, who worked as an artist, Lars Jensfold, who worked as an editor, and finally Chet Falazek, who was one of the head writers at Valve. Now let's head over to the Sacrifice once again. Throughout chapters 1 and 2, you can find various pieces of wall graffiti that say the following. Dylan, heading to Atlanta. Atlanta is safe. Sita said Atlanta is safe. We never see or go to Atlanta in the Left 4 Dead games, but we can safely assume that despite these pieces of wall graffiti, Atlanta is most likely overrun and infested with zombies. And we know this because of a voice line from Rochelle during Chapter 1 of Dead Center, where Rochelle directly states that Atlanta already fell to the infection. As I already talked about in my most recent video, Rochelle working for a news station means she's more reliably informed than any other Left 4 Dead character. It's also important to note that Savannah is only 4 hours away from Atlanta, and as we see in the Dead Center campaign, the city of Savannah has been overrun by the infected, so if Savannah fell to the infection, odds are Atlanta was overrun as well. If you head over to the safe room at the beginning of Chapter 3, you find this. Lou F. turned into one of the big ones. No way to know for sure, but Lou F. shares the same initials as Lou Ferrigno, who played and voiced the Incredible Hulk in multiple movies and TV shows. The graffiti directly references him turning into one of the big ones, which could be a boomer or more likely a tank. Maybe it's a coincidence, but regardless, I think it's worth pointing out. Now let's head over to the other side of the safe room. Faded behind a massive clump of graffiti, you find this line of text which reads as follows. This checkpoint was secured by the C-115th. After doing some digging, this seems to be referring to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 of the Constitution, which basically allows the government to call upon militia groups in the event of a civil war or an insurrection. However, this is just my interpretation. This could be some obscure military code that I don't know, so if you guys have anything to add, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Now, let's talk about my favorite piece of wall graffiti in the Sacrifice. Below a wooden table, you find this. These stick figures are zombies, as evidenced by the red seen around their mouths. If you look at the dead bodies at their feet, you'll notice that they are torn to pieces. And at the center of it all, a massive zombie, most likely a tank. And at the bottom right, you can see the name Tyler. Again, it's almost impossible to know what this means exactly, but if I had to take a guess, Tyler is likely the name of the tank in the train car. I didn't go into much detail on it in my Sacrifice breakdown, so I'm gonna do it now. The tank in the train car is a little different from all the other tanks. I mean, the encounter is very unique in itself, but more importantly, the model of this tank is different from the other tanks. If you take a look at the model of this tank, you'll notice a tattoo of the United States Marine Corps on the left side of his chest. And if you zoom in on his arms, I'm pretty sure these are shackles. The tattoo directly implies that this tank was a soldier before his transformation. Maybe he was the Tyler mentioned in the wall graffiti below the table. It's found right before the train event, and it's the best guess that I have. Again, it's almost impossible to know for sure, so I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. For our next bit of wall graffiti, let's head over to the Crash Course campaign. Inside of a warehouse, you find this, the Angels of Death. This exact piece of wall graffiti can be found in Chapter 3 of the Sacrifice, except this one is a little different. If you go to the Crash Course campaign, you can see the following names. Brenda, Jerry, Chris, Phil, Sean, Brock, Jason. And once you reach Chapter 3 of the Sacrifice, you'll notice that a new name has been added, Jamie. The Angels of Death are officially a group of 8, and it should also be noted that the name Sean makes an appearance on the Last Stand campaign, and his graffiti reads as follows. I am the last one here. Thank you to those who got me this far. Assuming that this is the same Sean that we see with the Angels of Death, this would mean that Sean is the last survivor in the group, but remember that's just speculation. Now let's head over to the finale of No Mercy, where we have this infamous line of text: "No zombie is safe from Chicago Ted." Chicago Ted has become infamous in Left 4 Dead lore despite only being referenced a single time. Now let's head over to the passing campaign. In the bathroom on the right, you find this: "No toilet is safe from toilet pooping Kevin." Both of these lines of text have very similar wording, and in my opinion, this could be one of two things. Either A, a simple joke by the developers, or B, and this is my personal headcanon, the legend of Chicago Ted has stretched all the way to Georgia, and survivors are making references to the legendary zombie killer. There isn't a whole lot of evidence to go off, but in a video going over wall graffiti, I'd be remiss if I didn't give Chicago Ted a mention. Sometimes, these lines of text are direct references to other movies, video games, and TV shows. So to end off the video, I'm going to quickly go through a bunch of references hidden within the wall graffiti. Some of these I covered in prior videos, and some I didn't. If I did miss anything, be sure to let me know down below. Now, let's get started. The bar in the passing has 4 pieces of graffiti that deserve a mention. This one I covered in the passing video is a direct reference to Dead Rising protagonist Frank West, and Otis is the janitor that assists Frank throughout the game. On the right side of the pool table you find this: "Looking for an M60? Come see Crazy Dave," which is a reference to a character in Plants vs. Zombies. Next we have this one: "Ed is the king of the zombies." This is a reference to the movie Shaun of the Dead.
What is that?
What about yours?
Hey?
Who died and made you fucking king of the zombies?
And finally we have this: "Went to save my dog. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, everyone drop everything and come save me. Nicole." This is another reference to the movie Dawn of the Dead, which features a character named Nicole who drove a truck through a small herd of zombies just to save her dog. Now, heading over to the Last Stand campaign, we also have this: "It's true that once the wheels of justice begin to turn, nothing can stop them. Nothing. Kelvin." This line is spoken verbatim by Resident Evil protagonist Joel Valentine in the opening of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis.
It's true that once the wheels of justice begin to turn, nothing can stop them. Nothing.
Also in the Last Stand campaign, we have this: "I'll keep fighting no matter what comes. It's your funeral." When loading into the Sacrifice campaign, the words "It's your funeral" can be seen at the bottom of the poster. And when you reach the junkyard and go all the way to the right, you find this. This piece of graffiti says "Yar Yar Days," which is a Japanese phrase that expresses irritation. I'm almost positive that this is a reference to the anime JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. "Yar Yar Days" is a catchphrase from one of the main characters, Jotaro Kujo, who says it almost 80 times throughout the course of the show. In the Last Stand campaign, there is a ton of wall graffiti. Some of it I broke down here, but I'm going to leave the others alone for a future video that may or may not happen. And with that, we've reached our conclusion. As I mentioned earlier, there is a ton of wall graffiti in this game. Sometimes it's a random reference or Easter egg, and sometimes it's a big lore implication. I went over the graffiti that I thought was the most interesting, but if I did miss anything, or if you guys have anything to add, be sure to let me know down below. This also feels like a good time to announce that in the next video, we are going to be doing our first unofficial campaign breakdown. But until then, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.